Back here on the Newsfeed PM, thanks for staying on to this. Now, the road for the taxi industry to go cashless is becoming a reality. Wext Solution, in association with the taxi industry, have launched a project aimed at making the sector cashless. Here to tell us more about this project, I'm now joined by Anthony Stewart, who is the CEO of Wext. Good to have you, Anthony, and thank you very much for coming on. About a year ago, the Premier of Gauteng, speaking at the Cashless conference, would have made this announcement of the transport sector as a whole really going cashless, something called a one ticket. You know, one would have listened to him and thought, he's having this conversation because it's a cashless conference, you know. These things are not a possibility. Were you at that particular time already aware that this is a possibility, and were you working on something of that nature?
Yes, so we actually started in Rustenburg about 2.5 years ago, where we started implementing a single ticketing or card system in the Rustenburg Yarona buses. And that's also overflowed to the taxis that they're using in Rustenburg. So you use one card that's backed by Department of Transport. And the idea is that you can use that card to travel on a bus, on a taxi, on a train, basically. Any form of transport needs, in the future, will be gazetted to accept that ABT card, basically.
Yeah, and what's the adoption on this type of technology, especially if you're looking at 15 million people who we are told use, for example, the taxi every single day? These are people mainly in the informal spaces, some of them not particularly digitally savvy.
Yeah, I think, it's not, adoption is not without its challenges. I think it depends on who you want to ask. If you're asking the commuters are very keen to go cashless. They're aware of tapping, as an example, to pay for groceries. If not, they're aware of buying maybe a ticket and then having a ticket scanned. Other adoption challenges have been with the members, just getting an understanding of what cashless is about and building trust between us and the members. And then also for drivers, understanding what are the benefits that drivers can get out of this, and making sure that everybody in this ecosystem gets the right benefits.
Yeah, I'm sure taxi owners particularly happy about it because they don't have to worry about the money that they need to get. But taxi drivers, who we know sometimes make a little bit extra out of this, how are they feeling about this particular system?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, at the implementation that we've just that we kicked off in November with the Botransa Taxi Association in Swartrugens, our challenges were not actually with the drivers, but more with the members understanding what were the benefits. And as we got to that, we suddenly realized that there's a lot of education that needs to happen in this space, and we started creating a booklet about cashless and getting it out in multiple languages. And as soon as people can understand what the benefits are, and everybody has to get benefit. If everybody's not getting benefit, if somebody's getting shortchanged in this process, then it won't work.
Yeah.
So as a taxi driver, as an example, we only have 4% of taxi drivers in South Africa own a home. And the reason for this is because they live in a cash-only environment. They are not banked, they're not financially included per se. And they can't go to a bank and say, please give me a loan, because there's no proof of income.
Yeah.
So with this system in place, we explain to the drivers and say, look, once you get this in place, you then can start qualifying and you can start buying yourself a vehicle, you can buy yourself a home, you can get personal finance. And then what we do in the taxis, we open up other opportunities to sell airtime, lotto, electricity. And there's lots of other business opportunities that we're building, so that if you think of a taxi as a little business center, that taxi driver, along with the owner, will have opportunities to make more money than just transporting commuters in the morning and at night, basically.
I suppose you bring another challenge here in terms of the seamless integration of a system of this nature, the banked and the unbanked. How do you integrate the unbanked? Are they able to interact with this automated fare collection interface?
Yes, so for the unbanked, you can just go and buy an ABT card. SANRAL has made them available throughout the country at ShopRite, Checkers, and a couple of other outlets as well. I think a lot of the Blue Label stores and stuff like that have it as well. But in Rustenburg, with the municipality, they put up kiosks where commuters can just go and get a card and then top up cash against the card, basically. So you can then, for instance, what was interesting when we first started, if the trip from Klabani to Rustenburg Centre was 10 Rand, people would put on 20 Rand, right? So they'd go 20 Rand to work in the morning and 20 Rand back. And what we found is that the people put in the exact same amount every day, okay? And then as people started getting used to the system, started trusting the system, started trusting the promptness of the buses and taxis, they then started putting money in at the beginning of the week, okay? And having enough money to last them for the whole week. And the exciting thing to see now is basically after payday, after the 25th, it spikes to 4 times higher than any other day of the month, the first Monday of that, basically, where people are putting their transport money to one side, because you know, you can play with your drinking money or grocery money, all kinds of your other budgets, but you don't play with transport. Transport is very important, and you need that to be able to get to work.
Yeah. And how important is a well-functioning transportation network, I suppose, in this piece of the puzzle, particularly, you know, in other countries where, you know, you've got this one ticket. When you catch an underground coming up on the other side, you're sure that the bus will be there or whatever other mode will take you to where you need to be without any glitches.
Yes, I think, you know, this is not something that will get tackled by one provider in the country. This is each municipality, each province will take on their responsibility to get this done. So if you look at what's happening in Rustenburg, they started off with buses, and then they started integrating taxis that were owned by the municipality, and now with Botransa, one of the local taxi associations, we started integrating over there. So the people coming from Swartruggens, basically into Rustenburg, they know that they can start going on taxis, and then when they get into town, they can maybe take the last leg of their destination on a bus, as an example. So it's kind of a hub and spoke type of thing. Once you get point A and point B, if you join, if you then go from A to C, then that automatically makes point B and C part of the network. So the network will grow like a spider web as it goes. And it's the responsibility of the local municipalities to do this, along with, you know, the cities that we are in today.
Yeah, the power utility has done the transformation also in its own space to go digital, prepaid and whatnot. But what they have encountered are counterfeit goods that begin to crop up and begin to interfere with the processes. How counterfeit proof is this system?
Very much so. It's based on a Cyprus card, which is an international security standard, or transport card as well. And so we can accept Cyprus cards as well as the bank cards. So you can also tap with a debit card or a credit card. And we all know that, you know, there's a lot of security around that as well. So security hasn't been an issue in this regard. And if you buy one of those cards and you register it against your name. If you lose the card, you have the benefit of cancelling that card, so you don't lose the money on it, and then getting another card and still using that money to travel for the rest of the month.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anthony, much appreciated, and thank you very much for the information shared with us this afternoon. Anthony, CEO of WEX Solution. That is the company bringing cashless travel, particularly using taxis in relation with the taxi industry.